Hi, everybody. We are back at the Beach Street Yacht Club at Studio B. Back in the saddle again. We were singing that before we went live, that old country and western song by Gene Autry. Rob Sternstein, Ken Saban, Paul Homchick, Andrew Pindar, and Stingray and Bill Haynes, many, many others. Welcome.
9, 8,
Let's get this one on the road.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, back. I have to remember which buttons to push to make it all work here. Back in Studio B, back in the saddle again. We were trying to remember the words, back in the saddle again, out where a friend is a friend. Something like that, right?
Yeah,
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. With something, gypsum weed? I don't know. Who knows? That's too crotonic even for me. I am beat. I've done, 10 shows last week. We did those 3 shows the week before that while we were back here, including that 4-hour watch party that was a lot of fun for the Olympics. And then the week before that, 10 shows back down at Balboa Yacht Club. My co-host, Julia Vatican, is standing by. In fact, she's not standing by. She's fully ensconced. She's sitting by and not fully lit, I hope. At least not this early in the day. Here in Beach Street Yacht Club, I'm your host, Tom Ehman. As you all know, this is our show number 446. Getting close to 450, Tuesday the 17th of August. So, Julie, we have to think about what we're going to do. See, this Friday will be 447. Next week will be 48 and 49. And the following Tuesday will be 450. We'll do something. It's not a big number, but it's a little bit of a number. Standing by in London is James Pleasance. We'll be to him in a moment. Finally, after APing him a couple times, we want to remind you as well, always, Julie, your witness.
Don't forget to like, follow, and share. I just viewed those files, and that's the like, follow, and shares are really important to us.
They are indeed. Nice scarf, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
So we'll have lots of comments about hashtag the scarf.
Comments, is back.
Comments welcome too, even in replay, as you all know, those watching in replay, which thousands of you do. Support us, please, on Patreon. Become a patron, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. And every little bit helps. We had a couple join last week at the $10 level.
More than that.
Did we?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, you're monitoring that. I was so busy down at Balboa Yacht Club. We had a terrific event. We're going to open with that. And instead of bringing him on when we get to the World Match Racing Tour, I thought, Julie, it would be auspicious to bring today's guest, the World Match Racing Tour's James Pleasant, on straight away. James in London. Welcome, sir.
Greetings. How are we?
Never better, thank you. And since we're going to be talking, this is becoming the match racing show. We talked about the Youth or Governor's Cup and then the Youth Worlds, and now we're talking about World Match Racing Tour. We're going to have this Friday, by the way, guys and gals, we're going to have Jamie Keating, who's the past Commodore of the Royal Canadian Yacht Club, and Alan McGarry, who is the chair of the Cannabis Cup. And that's coming up in a couple weeks' time up in Toronto at the Royal Canadian Yacht Club. We're going to talk some more about match racing this coming Friday. And then next Tuesday, another Brit on. Julia, James, you know how Julia loves Brits, right?
No.
Huh?
Sure.
She's in love with all you Brits, including McIrvin, including Pindar, and of course Emmett. But she's convinced me again that we got to have a COVID update because of this continuing crotonicism. Because there is some governmental crotonicism, and then there's the bloody Delta variant and the Lambda variant. So we're going to have Andrew McIrvin on a week from today to update us on that. Let's start out here with the starting line and a Bravo Zulu right off the bat to what was a terrific event down at Balboa Yacht Club. I did my Tuesday show from there, as many of you will know, and probably watched it at the Balboa Yacht Club, where they staged not only the Governor's Cup 3 weeks ago, but then last week we had World Sailing's Youth Match Racing World Championship, which is a fairly recent event. Gov Cup goes back 54 years. But the Youth Worlds, I think it's 8, maybe James knows, 8 or 9 years old. Do you know how old that championship is, James?
Oh, I had a feeling you might ask me that. I think you're right. It is about 8 or 9 years. I'm sure someone will correct us if we're wrong, but thereabouts. Yeah, it's been
it's
very
strange.
successful.
If we are wrong, they always do correct us, which is why the Fozy are so smart. This was the last toe in after the last race. It was the first time an American has won the event. There were 9 teams from 5 nations. And it was won by David Wood of Host Balboa Yacht Club. Jeffrey Peterson, who won the Gov Cup this year, has had a hell of a summer winning the Rose Cup and a couple other events, and now was runner-up in the finals with David Wood. Yeah, the locals had a bit of an advantage because they're sailing on their home court, so to speak, on their home waters in these boats that they don't get to sail them more than the competitors coming in. But they did, those that sailed in the Gov Cup, of which 6 of these teams, I think, of the 9 did. But bravo Zulu to David Wood. But really to the whole event, it was, after Gov Cup, we thought it might just be a bit of a letdown. We're all burned out after doing Gov Cup for a week and then taking a week off and then doing it all again. Basically the same format, same number of teams, one less here for the Worlds. As Julia can attest, I was a wreck when I got back here Sunday night.
Yep.
Julia was cross with me because I didn't go up and fix her a cocktail as quickly as I should have, but and tell her all about what happened. But it was a terrific event. 4th place, Emil Kjær. Those of you in Denmark, Gordon Smith and others, you should be very pleased with the job he did. He was runner-up in Gov Cup, but Emil Kjær with the mic there from the Royal Danish Yacht Club once again sailed a terrific series. He ended up 4th, losing in the petit finale and the consolation.
5 minutes.
But just a terrific kid and a terrific crew. Congratulations to them. But here, James, and I was hoping James would comment on this because this is the Italian team that really nobody knew. Riccardo Seppe and co. representing, they said, the FIV, the Federazione Italia di Vela, their national sailing federation, and represent them well. They did. Riccardo Seppe's on the left. His English was not 100%, and the guy, his crew filled in for him as translators. But we know about the French, James. We know about the Kiwis, the Aussies, the Brits. Of course, the Americans are starting to come on, and even the Low Countries, and the Scandinavian countries. But what's going on in Italy?
Well, I think it's not the first time we've seen the strong Italian teams in match racing generally, but on the tour. I mean, if you remember some years back on the tour, you had Paolo Chan, who was always a tour de force, to coin a phrase. And then, we've had Riccardo Simoneschi, there's a whole bunch of Italian sailors that's been on the tour. But like the French, they've got to seem to have a very good program, as the French do with Mathieu Richard, who's done a lot of tour sailing and is now full time with the squad in France. So good to see these young teams coming through, and I think we're going to see a lot more of these guys.
Okay, well, likewise, they just again represented Italy very well. In the end, they won the petit finale, and I don't know what's going on with our feed, but we've got video interrupts. There will be no promulgation tonight. Andrew Pindar, yes, I spoke too soon. Intermittent issues for me as well. Peter Taylor, let me go look. I see no interruptions here. I see a steady, everything nominal here. We don't see any interruptions on our phone. So Facebook has been having problems, as we know. Let me go see what's going on with the stream for a second here.
It's not a problem here.
It must be Facebook servers, not ours, because I've got a very solid, I'm just looking again. Yeah, we've got a solid 30 frames a second, 3,000 plus kilobits, so we'll see how it's going. Bill Canfield, Don Lunabo. Some of you are saying that it's bad on your phone, but not on your computer. I don't know what it is. Well, we'll press on here because, as I said, we're not seeing it. Second place, as we mentioned, was Jeffrey Peterson. Jeffrey on the right with his crew. Samantha Hemmons there and Max Brennan and Scott Mays. They also sailed very well, but not nearly as well as their intra-club rival, David Wood, and his team. It's the tradition at Gov Cup. Now the Worlds, when you win, they'll throw themselves into the water. The world champs, Balboa Yacht Club's David Wood from, of course, the USA. And at the prize giving, the medal ceremony, Daniel Pegg there on the left, Marbella Marlowe, Newport Harbor Yacht Club, actually, Max Mayall, and David Wood. And David didn't do very well in the Gov Cup, but we rather suspect it was because he'd sailed Transpac.
Yeah, and
Arrived
arrived the night before.
The night before, and he was, you can't sail for 8 days or whatever it is out there. But bravo Zulu to them, terrific stuff. And it was a particularly well-run regatta, I thought. And I want to give some credit here to Christine Gribben. They're up there. This is from the Wednesday morning briefing, I think I took these pictures. We went live with the Wednesday morning briefings, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but we don't, it's Tuesday morning, because we have the big Monday night show where we introduce the teams. Andy Rose does, and has a bit of a roast. It's a really lot of fun. But Christine Gribben there on the left, briefing the sailors in the morning just before they dock out. Regatta chair extraordinaire. She's been on the committee there for 16 years, and I think now chaired 8 or 9 of these. And by the way, and I don't know, James, if you know her, but Anne Meladon, who's second from the left, was the technical director from World Sailing. She's been involved in the MC32s and any number of other events. Terrific gal from France. Do you know Anne?
Not well. I know her, but not well. But yeah, she's been on the scene for a while.
Well, she was also here when we at Balboa Yacht Club hosted the World's 2017. And I commend her to anybody. I think she's now, as a former business executive manager, I think she's now full-time as a race manager and available probably across the globe. She just come from Tokyo to Balboa, to Balboa Yacht Club, Newport Beach. She'd flown to L.A., where she had been in Tokyo helping to run, obviously, the Yachting Olympics in Noshima. Third from the left, second from the right in the dark blue shirt is Mark Townsend of Long Beach, Alamedas Bay Yacht Club in Long Beach. He'd come down and was the PRO, because World Sailing likes to have a PRO, a race officer, not from the local club. And then a guy I know you do know, James, and that is Remy Donrat, who has a Dutch name, but he's an Aussie. Talk about somebody who is international. He's an Aussie from Perth, from WA, and living in Houston, Texas. Terrific guy. You must know Remy.
Yeah, great guy. He was and he was with us in Bermuda last October for the Gold Cup and what was the World Championship last year as one of the umpires. Yeah, terrific guy.
Indeed. So it was a good event. We had a lot of television coverage, as we did. Well, I did 10 shows, including my Tuesday show last week. I couldn't do Friday because we were out on the water doing the commentary. But these are the 6 shows from the last 2 days, from Friday and Saturday. We had over 8,200 views for those 6 shows. And I don't produce the live on the water, but Chris Bretschker, a club member, does. We're all volunteers. Nobody's being paid. And the job that club does, and Chris Bretschker and his team in particular do, is simply nothing short of amazing. And bravo Zulu to them. This I put on my Facebook page, and it deserves a caption contest, I suppose. It is all sorts of dumb captions already, so I put it up just to show you that I can be a bit, look at James, he's laughing. I can be a bit self-effacing. And Ehman goes to the dogs. That's the only interview he can score. He can't even put the mic in the dog's face, and maybe there were all sorts of dumb comments, Julia. Even you made a couple of comments.
Oh,
you.
I know.
This is Morgan dog Steve Frederickson, Andy Rose's dog, and Steve Fredericks, who took me over to the club every morning. Thank you, Stephen. Put his dog on the chair, and we did a fake. Obviously, I didn't interview the dog.
Yeah, of course you
TFE
did.
goes to the dogs. That's the Youth Match Racing World Championship, a terrific event. Next year it will be in France on the Atlantic coast, up in Brittany, I think. And they struggle to find hosts. So I hope your countries, if they're interested, at all interested in match racing, first of all, will help to host this event. But more importantly, to do what we've done here, what they've done in Sweden and Denmark in particular, Australia, New Zealand, and in the UK, and now in France, is to push match racing, especially for kids, because it's a great discipline. And as any number of times we've said on this show, James, the best match racing event any of us can remember. In fact, the best Olympic event was the 2012 women's finals match racing at Weymouth.
Yes, good fun.
Up there on
Good
the
fun.
hill, right?
Good fun. I should mention too the just last week, Dawn Riley and the team at Oak Cliff Sailing that you know very well, and I'm sure the listeners do, ran a 2-week match racing academy, which we supported from the tour, which ended with a grade 3 match racing event. They had one of Taylor Canfield's crew and a former tour sailor, Hayden Goodrick, as coach for 2 weeks, and we posted some pictures and updates on the tour Facebook page, but by all accounts, hugely successful. And it was really great to see, a dozen or so new match racers that took a whole fortnight to learn all the ropes and then got to compete in the event. So hopefully, see them again. But a really great initiative from Dawn and the team. So wanted to give a shout out to them. Very happy to have supported that.
Great. And I saw that on your Facebook page as well, on the World Match Racing Tour's Facebook page. But I also want to tell you, I haven't had time to tell you, James, even in the pre-show tech check, but there was a quite a discussion at the Worlds, the Youth Worlds just now, about putting together an organization for youth match racing, a global like there's a women's match racing group. And I may well start a youth match racing Facebook page, Facebook group, on which, and people running events like Gov Cup, they can still post it on their own Facebook page or YouTube or whatever they want. But if we put all those events, also cross-post them over to one page, this world...
I haven't got it in front of me, but there is one already.
Is there?
And there's a youth match racing group, which I've been part involved with as well, which I also didn't tell you. And it's being run by... leading the charge is Mike Rollick, who's also the recently appointed chair of the match racing subcommittee of World Sailing. He took over from Liz Bayliss, super guy out of Finland. And so have a look around before you. There's certainly a movement, and he is certainly leading the charge on the youth match racing side.
We don't want to duplicate efforts, so that's great to hear. And I if somebody else has done it, I certainly
I haven't got it in front of me, but we'll share the links. But it's we're and we're helping as well, trying to push, not only the women's match, that's a separate discussion as well, but also a big push with the youth side, to the point where actually I've been talking to 2 organizers in Asia over the last few weeks that have been following the progress at the Gov Cup and what was happening in Balboa, and they'd like to see if they can replicate or create some new youth events in that part of the world, which I think would be great. So watch this space.
Do they have a Facebook group? Do you know?
From the youth side?
Yes,
but I don't know what it is.
Okay, well, we'll find that. And just one other, while we're comparing notes here, this is all great news. Texting with Remy Donrot this morning. He's starting, and he wants to join in with this initiative. Again, he's a Renaissance, he's an international character with a Dutch name, and I don't know where he grew up, but he's from WA. He's from Perth, Western Australia, now living in Houston, Texas, because he and his girlfriend or partner are working there. But he's back and forth. He wants to start a youth umpiring scheme, as you would say in the UK or in the Commonwealth, and really start to bring in young umpires to events to serve alongside, the older, more experienced umpires. One of the things I hear from the gang, by the way, is that international umpires and international judges, but particularly IJs, the numbers of registered IJs have plummeted. People aren't traveling, and people have lost interest and so on. So this sounds like a good initiative as well.
I hadn't heard about the youth umpiring. I think that's a great idea, and I dare say there's a way to join the dots with what, and if Mike is listening, there's certainly a move to push the youth match racing side. And as I recall, they were going to do a separate youth match race rankings via World Sailing, but I haven't seen them yet. I thought they'd announced it a while ago, but we haven't seen that yet.
But believe me, they did it a long time ago, but World Sailing has been so far behind the 8 ball on a lot of things because I assume the Olympics, the financial problems and so on. Denise Peterson will tell you, she's on here, at least she was earlier, how upset she is that World Sailing hasn't updated. Of course, her kid is going to be up there near the top of the the World Sailing Youth Match Racing rankings, but they've been doing that. Clark Chapin, did you see that, Julia? Clark's given us the link. Here's the FB Youth Match Racing group.
Oh, well done, someone.
So Clark, who's we call him the navigator. He and Stingray are so quick on the internet. So he's already put the link there, 4 or 5 comments up. Whirly blue thing and froze. I wonder why, because, we're not seeing any problems here. So some of you there's some Facebook server problems somewhere, and I apologize for that. Alex Kent saying, I hear Facebook is for older people. Well, they can go on Instagram if they want, but, kids, interestingly, kids are starting to come back to Facebook. Did you know that? One here is my daughter, Meg, who's a bit of a social media queen, tells me that kids are starting to come, meaning people up to 30. So
let's ask the youth sailors, where do they want to read things?
Exactly.
I mean, it's all, if it wants to be on TikTok or Snapchat or all these other ones, I mean, it's, we still see quite a lot of traffic on Facebook, but it's certainly for the older generation, I would say.
Well, it's the thing about Facebook, and when we shifted this show over to YouTube for a while, most of our gang likes Facebook because A, they get notifications, B, they can the engagement, the community engagement, the chatting back and forth is easier here than it is on YouTube or Insta or any. But that's a technical problem we can solve. I see Magnus Wheatley is on here. We're going to talk about one of his columns, but I hope you saw as well. I know, Julia, you saw it. Magnus's great column about youth sailing. It was called Summertime.
Yes, it was really
good.
And
the living is easy. Or, the old Porgy and Bess song from 1930, whatever it was.
I think Magnus has done a bit of match racing. We'll get into a match racing article.
He loved, too, the 2012 thing. And while we're on that, don't forget that the 2000 Olympic Men's Match Racing Championship at the foot of the Opera House in Sydney was also a celebrated Olympic event. So we got to get match racing back in the Olympics.
Well, we did make a bit of a push when they had the call to arms for the Olympic classes. There was a push from the match racing community, but it wasn't ticking all the boxes, but it certainly ticked a few. There was a number of
ticked off
builders.
A few people too.
yeah, but there are a number of builders that were going to present boats, and it made a lot of sense if you ask me. But then I would be biased, of course I would. But
it solves a lot of IOC's problem too, with that.
Well, yeah, but here's the problem: is the boats. Everybody they get dollar signs in their eyes, and they think, now's my chance to foist the latest Elliott. What were those boats called? Elliott 6s or the latest sonar or frankly, forget about the boats, because everybody gets so equipment intensive. And if we would just focus on the discipline of racing, because it doesn't really matter what you race in. Race in sunfish if you want, match race.
Yeah.
We should focus on that, because having match racing ties the pinnacle event in our sport, the America's Cup, through the World Match Racing Tour and the granddaddies like Bermuda Gold Cup and Congressional Cup and so on, to this terrific Governor's Cup and now the Youth Match Racing World, and that would tie it all to the Olympics as well. And World Sailing should follow what has been successful in the past. And we know that 2012 women's match racing event and the 2000 match racing, to say nothing of 92 and 96, the match racing events in Soling.
Yeah.
So we're going to count on you, James.
Yes.
Well, not sure I'm ready to take on the IOC, but no, it was an interesting discussion. But,
you're just giving them a grand opportunity.
All right. We put it forward anyway. But I have to say, I quite like the idea of sharing the disciplines where you can, you might have some of the single-handed sailors, and then they, do a match racing at the same Olympics to keep the athlete numbers down. I hadn't really thought about that before. I thought it was quite an interesting idea. When, in athletics, you do 100 and a 200 and a what have you, or in swimming.
And swimming too, exactly. And I've been pushing
and I wondered if that, how realistic it is and how feasible it is in sailing. But then you look at, a lot of the guys and girls and kids that are match racing. I mean, most of them are either previously or gone on to be either Olympic or offshore sailors. So the skills carry across the disciplines, and exactly. I was quite interested in that idea.
Well, and that's one of the things I liked about the offshore event until I heard it was going to be a whole separate medal event and a whole separate set of people. And I liked the idea of taking another event or even two, and then the sailors in the other classes have to pile onto a common boat and go sail, and they have a chance to win a second or even third medal. That's right. How you make people famous. That's why Ben Ainsley is famous after winning, he won 5 medals, and various others, Elfstrom and so on.
Yeah,
and you say the swimming and track and field, you can do that.
And if you think about it, if you had if you've got a men's class in the Olympics and a women's class, you bring them together in another discipline as a mixed crew. Okay, that may be going one step too far. You could then have the mixed match racing, which is what we were talking about. But the athlete numbers weren't really going to work on this occasion because it was, we didn't think that two-person match racing was really feasible. But
Julia,
anyway, it's interesting ideas.
Sorry, Julia?
Stingray just said Dalton mentioned an increased presence coming for ETNZ in match racing ahead in a release today.
Okay. Was that, Stingray, was that the release today or yesterday? Hello, Warren Chaucer down in Brisbane. I hope that's sorting out for you. Try rebooting, try refreshing your browser window, whatever you're watching it. We are having zero problems here. I'm looking at the stream stats are completely nominal, in fact superb. We've dropped 0 frames, all the things are stats here. So I hope you're not having problems. Bobby Steele says if any monkey can drive, conceive. Okay. Couple other comments. What else, Julia, here?
I saw that comment, Julia, about the I think it was from Grant Dalton about the America's Cup maybe doing a bit more in match racing. There was talk, I think, in one of Magnus's articles about wouldn't it be fun to see some mule racing? And I think he referred to fleet racing. But if anyone wants to provide a fleet of mules for a world tour match racing event, I very happily find them an event.
Well, I'm going to quote from that article. Magnus is on here. He was, and I believe he's still on. So let's power through. We get talking about COVID and all the things facing our sport, including your tour. So I put up near the top of the show our correct or crutonic segment because, as many of you will be aware, today in New Zealand,
Delta has been called a game changer, and it is. It means we need to again go hard and early to stop the spread. We have seen what can happen elsewhere if we fail to get on top of it. We only get one chance. That's why Cabinet has met this afternoon and made the decision that New Zealand will move to alert level 4 from 11:59 p.m. tonight. Level 4 will be for an initial period of 3 days, except for Auckland and the Coromandel Peninsula, who we anticipate will likely be at level 4 for 7 days, due to them being most closely linked to our current case. I want to assure New Zealand that we have planned for this eventuality, and that we will now be putting in place that plan to contain and stamp out COVID-19 once again. Going hard and early has worked for us before. While we know that Delta is a more dangerous enemy to combat, the same actions that overcame the virus last year can be applied to beat it again.
Well, that's a report in The Guardian, obviously, and that's for one case. And they've gone into a 3 or 4 day lockdown for all of New Zealand and a 7-day lockdown for Auckland and I think the Coromandel Peninsula, which, it seems a little harsh to me, but that's the way the PM, is playing it. Is it correct or crutonic? James, we'll start with you.
Well, I don't know if it's embarrassing or not, but I was just looking, we were 28,176 new cases today in the UK. And
say that again.
28,176
new cases
today.
That is today, 7-day average 28,000. And I just booked a flight to the US. So, and came back from a holiday in Europe. So it's look, I'm not the expert. I think you need Dr. McIrvine for that. But from the UK point of view, everyone's out and traveling, and they're reducing our restrictions, every day. And I was surprised to see with one case. I mean, I know New Zealand's been very strict with it, and I know it's sadly affected a bunch of the teams, coming to the tour events. I know Nick Egnott Johnson and his team were hoping to be at the Congressional Cup and, are not able to come because of the MIQ, the quarantine slots back in New Zealand. So, I hear that there's quite a lot of people are fed up down there, but I'm not the politician, so not for me to say.
Well, and that's, of course, begs the question, as Clark Chapin is saying, well, that's one case that they know of, and of course they'll see in the next coming days, and apparently it is Delta, and they're worried about Delta. But as Bill Wingrove is saying, with the strong lockdowns that they've had in NZ, there's no other option. One case there can turn into thousands due to being so cloistered, and of course having not had that many people vaccinated and not having had natural immunity.
I think that's the key to it. I think I read earlier that New Zealand were just at about 20% vaccinated. I think in the UK we're closer to 90% on double jabs, and I'm sure someone will correct me on that if it's wrong. So I suspect that some of the calls that are being made down there are related to the number of people vaccinated. At the end of the day, I'm not sure how you can live with no cases. I don't see how that's going to happen.
I think you're 9 in the UK from memory, and I watched, who's our doctor, Julia, Dr. Campbell, that we watch every day, and I think you're 90% maybe have had one jab in the UK, not double. And Stingray's saying that only 18% of New Zealanders have been double jabbed. Here in the US, we're now something over 50% single jabbed, right? And most of the older folks. But the resistance is strange. They blame it on people on the right, or they blame it on people in the inner cities. I don't know. I don't understand it. We're not here to talk about it, but we will get an update. Except we're only here to talk about it to the extent it's affecting our sport, including the World Match Racing Tour. Yeah, and Andrew Pindar is saying, can James talk about the future plans for the WMRT? Really interested to hear more about the leadership position he is taking with female participation. So why don't we, before we get to that, James, and if you're just joining us, we do have James Pleasance, who is the executive director again of the World Match Racing. Well, he's on and off, but he's taken up the cudgel. We're delighted to have him here live via Skype from London. Sorry again for those of you who are having trouble with the stream. We are seeing no problem here with the stream. Yeah. But nonetheless, James, tell us what COVID is doing. What's the current status of the tour? Because we know Bermuda was canceled, was postponed till next year, and what else is going on with the tour?
Well, Bermuda was part COVID related and part funding related after several years with the title sponsor Argo that many will know or remember, and so there were some issues there this year, and sadly they had to cancel the event this year, and we're hoping we'll be back, bigger and better with them next year. We started this year. I've got it in front of me. We launched a 17 event tour with 4 of what we call the World Championship events, like our majors, Match Cup Marstrand in Sweden, the Gold Cup, the Congressional Cup, and then our new, which we haven't done yet, our new agreement with the city of Shenzhen and the Boan district in China to host the finals of the tour for the next 5 years, in fact. Which we're excited about, but there are certainly restrictions getting into China at the moment. And as much as we started well this year, of course, I think as we all hope that the pandemic recovery would have happened sooner than it has, and it's just been a shame that a number of the events have had to either postpone or cancel for a second year in a row. For a number of reasons, some nervous sponsors having to focus on other areas like keeping their own businesses going, but also as a world tour, equals international teams, equals international travel. And if you can't travel, we've talked about New Zealand, the US borders are, still technically closed, although we are, I do gather now that there's, a number of athletes and sports people and organizations getting through to events. And so I think the borders are officially closed, but there is travel, and we're hoping to get to all the teams to the Congressional Cup next month. So, we're slightly sort of one arm behind the back a little bit with these restrictions. And as a result, unfortunately, the Masterand event had to cancel this year, as did Bermuda. We're certainly hoping that the Congressional Cup is all systems go, which, as of calls pretty much daily with them, it is currently. And so well done to all the team at the Long Beach Yacht Club for putting that together. And currently the final schedule for December in China are still going ahead. But right now there are restrictions into China. So we're going to have to keep a fairly close eye on that. So this year has been a challenge. But we're keen to get as many events away as we can, at the same time putting a hard focus on 2022.
Well, Congressional Cup is just in a month's time, and before that is the Ficker Cup, which is the qualifier, the late great Bill Ficker, that after which that trophy is named. Yeah. Won the America's Cup 1970, sailing Intrepid in the Star Worlds at least once, maybe twice. So we know that they tell us it's all systems go. We do know that for Gov Cup and for the Youth Worlds, teams from New Zealand, Australia, and the UK, and it wasn't getting here, as I said at the top of the show, and as Andy and I said any number of times on the commentary, it was getting home and then having to have the managed quarantine to go into a hotel for 2 weeks at $300 a night.
I think that's improved now. There's less of the either self-isolation with a lot of these countries, but I know New Zealand and Australia are still difficult, and as a result, a number of teams and crews of other teams have been unable to. They can get out of the country, but getting back in is the problem. So I'm sorry for them. It's difficult.
Well, the Swedes, as another comment that didn't Andrew Pindar make that comment, Julia? He just said it was great that the GKSS, the Royal Gothenburg Yacht Club up in Göteborg in Sweden, were able to host a Swedish event, Marstrand, which kept the plate spinning. I like that. There's an expression.
There we go.
Yeah, they hosted. They sort of went local with the fleet of Far East 28s, and they had some local live TV on TV4, and that's the same organization that normally does the Match Cup. So, and that's the same as they did last year. There were limited spectators. I think up until about 3 days before the event, they didn't have permission to run the event, so they had to jump. They had to jump through a lot of hoops, and a lot of, not just sailors and teams, but a lot of people don't always understand what goes on behind the scenes with these events. And you see the pretty pictures at the end of the day, but it's there was a lot of paddling behind the scenes with that event, but it was great for them to pull it off.
Well, same for the umpires. People forget you got to have international umpires coming in from, right. And the costs and it's hard. Well, that's why I say bravo Zulu to Balboa Yacht Club, to the teams that showed up, the two teams from Royal Gothenburg, from GKSS, the two teams from Sweden. Those obviously were Swedish teams. The two teams from France. Marcos Weinstein, Congressional Cup may have issues with Kiwis participating due to re-entry concerns. Yeah, that's what we're just talking about. Let's talk some more about other implications, because Sail GP has been this is a headline today, yesterday, I guess. The Sailing New Zealand government denies the MIQ spots. What do we decide that means? Managed something quarantine? Hamish Ross is on here. He'll know what that means.
Managed isolation quarantine? Yeah, I don't know.
As is Ralph Roberts and a few other Kiwis. Robert Deves is, hi, Robert Deves. There is a guy who does a great job with PR for the Finn class and the OK Dean class. So in any event, sailing, whatever that, where you got to go into hotels or you got to have permission to come into New Zealand, that Sail GP event in Christchurch in January is apparently off. Another international sporting, this is New Zealand Herald. Another New Zealand international sporting event has been scuppered after being denied MIQ spots by the New Zealand government. The inaugural Christchurch yada yada event was set to attract hundreds of millions of viewers worldwide.
Of course. In
a statement of Sail GP yada yada. So that's the New Zealand Herald about that event apparently being canceled. I reached out to them and didn't get a response. I also hear from Pedro Foiling Sailor, and others in Oz, Alistair Murray, that maybe this thing, the Sail GP event there in Sydney in December, may well not happen. So I don't know if Peter Stevenson or anybody cares to comment on that. Yeah, minimally, J. Frederick Bland, MIQ, minimally invasive quarantine. So let's go specifically to the tour now and see what else you can update us on. This is your cool-looking trophy. Even you, Julie, you really like that
I do too.
Trophy,
yes.
Don't you? So James, what's the latest? We talked about Bermuda being postponed for a couple of reasons, canceled for 2021, and that's going to happen presumably again in 2022. A terrific event.
Yeah.
And that was won last year in 2020 when against all odds, they managed to have an event. And of course, that was won by Taylor Canfield there in the middle. Mike Taylor, there's a mistake that I didn't catch. That's obviously Mike Buckley, not Mike Canfield. I told you I was Crutonic, didn't I?
And I read it and went, what is that about? And I didn't even say anything.
No, I apologize to Mike Buckley. It's Freudian. Taylor Canfield, Mike Buckley. Taylor's dad's on here watching. They won last year, right, James?
Yeah, so they had they essentially had a double win last year because of particularly last year because of all the cancellations. We changed the format of the championship late in the day to not have a points leaderboard, and instead of cancelling the whole championship for the year, we were able to arrange things with the Gold Cup to run the event as a single tour finals / match racing world championship. So the guys won the Bermuda Gold Cup and also the world championship for last year, hence why they're in Bermuda with the tour trophy. And if you look at the photo gallery, there's another picture of them with the Bermuda Gold Cup. So plenty of silverware and goldware for the guys. So good event for them.
I want you to see how efficient our graphics department is. They've already managed to fix that graphic.
That's because we have a cast of thousands doing it. Yeah,
exactly. And I'll tell you why that happened. It's because I put camera 3 or put James's single shot on, and then I went and fixed it on the computer and turned the computer back on.
Very impressive on air too. And so they'll be in, and they're planning it being at the Congressional Cup, as Stars and Stripes, and as you know, as your previous show and reports have shown, they would appear to be pretty busy with the New York Yacht Club since we last spoke.
Well, yeah, and they've been taken up by New York Yacht Club, Taylor and Mike et al., as their new representative team. And we also see that American Magic has gone off and looks like they're doing their own thing. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's look at this video. What's Julia smiling over there?
Because you well, never mind.
What?
Because you said that couldn't be. You said to me the other day, oh.
What, that they'd be taken up by New York Yacht Club?
No, that they're.
Okay, she's now deferring. But tell us, do the setup for this video, 1991, the Mazda World Championships in Bermuda.
Well, it's a bit of a classic. Scott McLeod, whom you know well, who started the tour, and I initially joined many years ago. He and I caught up recently, and he told me he'd found some old tapes under his bed or wherever he was keeping them, and that he'd been kind enough to have them digitized, and would I be, would we be interested in playing them out? To which I said, it'd be perfect for your show. So no, so we've taken all the files, and we're now, we'll replay them all in bite-sized bits and whole half-hour shows. The whole 30-minute show, this is on our YouTube channel, but I sent you a couple of clips, and this is way before, the tour started in 99, 2000. This was in the early days of the Match Racing World Championship, when it was the Mazda World Championship in Bermuda, at the same time as the Gold Cup. And this was when it was the Amiga Grand Prix Sailing Tour and the Brute Fabergé Series days, for those that remember. So some familiar faces.
We had an event here, a Brute Cup here in San Francisco too. I think I did some commentating for you.
I was watching the video of it this afternoon, Tom, with a very young looking Gary Jobson, and I'll post the whole show we'll get it up on YouTube in the coming days because it's a classic for those of you that like watching the old stuff.
We don't. I for sure don't. But have a look at this video because it's I've never seen a finish of a yacht race before or since. Have a look. Roll tape.
The event began with a double round robin in which all 10 skippers raced against each other, and believe me, the sailing was wild. Lots of spinnaker blowouts. But watch what happens to the boat on your right. Watch the mast.
This was incredible. This is a unique shot here. This is Jesper Bang's mast breaking just as he comes to the finish, and Mark Bouet is coming up behind him now, and Jesper's been drifting over the line. Is he going to win this? Is he going to win it? He wins it, despite a broken mast.
There you go.
The late, great Chris Law, the Claw.
Yeah, I'd like to see someone repeat that move.
Yeah, Sangmeister is on here, Julie, saying move Congressional Cup. He wants to move Congressional Cup into Alamitos Bay, keep it in the Catalina 37s, and he said 5,000 would watch from the waterfront. What do you think of that? In Alamitos Bay instead of off the pier.
I shared a beer with John on the terrace of his house, having exactly the same conversation. So I'm all for it.
I guess you did hear it.
Well, they're not.
Be a lot of fun.
They're not too happy about it at Long Beach Yacht Club. There was a plan to do that last fall before COVID intervened. In fact, they were going to do it in the Solings, which is probably those Solings are a bit old and not in the best shape.
Yeah,
so.
that was a plan B for last year that didn't come about. But it was they were keen to make the event happen. So creds to them for trying it. We didn't quite get there in the end, but it's been talked about before. Just as the Bermuda Gold Cup brought the sailing in from from the Sound, right into Hamilton Harbor and where it's been since. So, I don't think it would be out of the question, but not for me to make the call.
Well, tell us some more about Congressional Cup. It is upcoming in a month's time. Do we have the entry list provided they can all get there?
I don't have the updated entry list, I'm afraid. I know all of the 6 tour card holders are invited. I'm aware that, which includes, Taylor and the Stars and Stripes team, Ian Williams from the UK, Phil Robertson, Maxime Mesnil from France, Eric Monin from Switzerland, and the Kiwis Nick Egnott-Johnson and team, who I know are unable to make it. So I'm sorry that they're not going to be able to make it over. Then you've got the top 2 from the FICA Cup, and then there's a club nominated entry, which for the last few years and this year was Scott Dixon, but he's also in New Zealand and will not be competing this year for the same reasons. So
yeah,
I'm afraid I don't.
Scott's a terrific sailor, and of course Chris, as is his brother Chris. I did the Cup campaign with Chris, a couple of them, and Chris's dad, who is a dean, if not the dean, a dean of yachting in New Zealand, is not 100%. So we wish him well and wish all of the Dixon family well. This shot back at the Veterans, the War Memorial Pier in Long Beach. They call it I think they call it the Balboa Pier. I can't remember. Belmont Pier.
Belmont Pier. It has a more long, glamorous name, but Belmont Pier. And the event will be back there again this year, as it has been every year. And interestingly, it's the same venue for the 28 Olympics in Los Angeles, and I hear that they'll be upgrading the pier in various ways, and John Sangmeister, I know, is all over that and will have all of the I'm sure can share all the details of that.
Well, and of course, say that is going to be the venue, and there will be the stadium courses, so-called stadium courses will be right off that pier. Congressional Cup's been run there for years, as you can see. Sangmeister's on here, I know, and he is going to be pushing. John, as he's told you and I, Julie, any number of times, John's going to be pushing for match racing back in the Olympics because he wants that venue to have match racing. And I think he and Stan Honey are going to be conniving on how to get an offshore event, some kind of an offshore event that is probably a little more practical than what we saw.
It's a fantastic event. it is a fabulous match racing event. You've got a natural high viewpoint from the pier. There's plenty depth there, so you can get the boats right up and even into the pier, as young Harry Price will attest. And you can you can literally, as I have done many times, touch the mainsail as the boats come past, and it's it's super cool from that point of view. Yes, the boats are older; they're not as fast as others, but the action is right there, and they pull a really good crowd. The winds are consistent. They have 10 teams, 10 boats, so plenty of racing for everyone, and they do a great job. Really enjoyable event.
Well, I do think it would be cool. I agree with Sangmeister. It would be cool to have it in Alamedas Bay, in some, whether it's in the Cat 37s or something similar, big boats in the bay. But we'll look forward to Congressional Cup next month. You're arriving there at some point.
Yeah, I will be going over there, and we'll have some photographers and TV imagery. There'll be plenty of content which we will post on all of the tour channels, as well as I'm sure Long Beach will be doing their thing as well. So there'll be plenty to watch and follow.
Okay, here's another picture. Let's look at this photo, because did you mention him as an entrant, Johnny Berenson?
Yeah, so that's from the Bermuda Gold Cup. Johnny Berenson from Sweden, who I'd got to be one of the oldest. Just had his birthday. He'll shoot me for saying, I think he's got to be 47-ish or something like that.
Oh my God, Julie, he's really old. He's all of 47.
He looks 27. I know.
Well, yeah, hang on. You just had a bunch of 18-year-olds from Balboa.
Yeah, true. 20 anyway, yeah.
So, Johnny and his Berenson sailing team will be, they'll be at the Congressional Cup this year. They're big favorites of the event. He is a winner and wearer of the Crimson Jacket, so he's a popular team to have at the event. And yeah, he'll be coming over. I spoke to him the other day.
What does James B. think of the 3-boat Sail GP finale format as opposed to the match racing format? Stingray up in Seattle asks.
I don't really have much comment on it. I was a little curious about the 3-boat thing as opposed to a sort of match racing shootout. We don't do a lot of 3-boat match racing on the same course, so I forget the reason why they've done it as 3 boats. I think I'd have preferred the two boat sort of shootout, but
oh, come on, tell us what you think. You're being such a diplomat. Doesn't
no,
sound like you like
honestly,
it.
I really hadn't thought about it that much. I mean, whether you got 2 or 3 on the court, I mean, great. I think it's great. I like the idea of match racing and the traditional, one-on-one. But so that would be my comment on it.
I actually like it. What the Star Sailors League does with 4 boats, and what Sail GP is doing with 3, I think it's okay. I think it's an interesting development. Yeah. Julia, what do you think?
I don't have an opinion.
Okay, you're as diplomatic.
Well, I've never seen a 3-boat match race.
Well, it's not. It's a 3-boat fleet race, really, and it's kind of it's a 3-boat. It's a fleet race. But before we leave Berenson, tell us about one of your sponsors. That his kit here. Only the Swedes could dress like this. I don't think I could get away with this.
He's this is John. That's a younger Johnny Berenson. He and his team have long been sponsored and dressed by Pelle P, the Swedish clothing company that have been a long-term clothing partner of the tour. They're great friends of ours, run by a company run by Cecilia Pettersson, daughter of the famous America's Cup designer Pelle Pettersson, who is however old he is and still skiing and playing golf and
sailing.
And sailing. And he was also designer of the Swedish Match 40 that Dawn has out in Oak Cliff. So they've been long involved with the tour. They're great guys at Pelle P. We're just waiting for some new gear from them, which we're proud to show off at the Congressional Cup. But yeah, Johnny's never failed to pull out their brighter their brighter items.
Well, you know, we wear red pants, Brenton red pants. We wear red and other green pants, but I like the yellow. I think, Julie, we need a pair of those.
Yeah,
or at least I do.
Yeah, but they're Swedish colors. They look great.
Okay.
Always one of the best dressed teams at events, and my advice to, you know, some of the young teams coming out of Balboa at the Gulf Cup and the Worlds is not necessarily to go and buy yellow trousers like that, but, you know, always dress your team, you know, look the part. It goes a long way.
For sure does. And Hamish Ross is saying that looks like the famous Beach Boys Pennington shirts.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but I think that's it. And Stingray, of course, is singing the old song, "They Call Me Mellow Yellow." Remember that, Julie?
Yes, indeed.
Do you remember that, James? You're too young.
I know
Extra
the song,
points if you can tell me who the singer was. They call me Mellow Yellow. Julia, can you?
I don't remember the name.
Stinger will tell you. You know what? Coincidentally, this day in history is related to all of that stuff. Yeah, why not? Okay, let's press out. Okay, James Frederick Bland was the first one to get it. Donovan was the singer of that. J. Frederick Bland, very clever. Fozy is. All of our Fozy are. Kevin Brown, not much difference than the faded red pink chinos seen mostly on the East Coast. Ted Ryman's there's another guy who's very cool.
Right.
Ryman is. Do you know Ted Ryman down in Cape Town?
The name vaguely, but not personally.
We've never met, but this guy is on every show, and he has
terrific.
He has Harley motorcycles. He has girls. He has booze. This guy is the classic guy. And next time I'm in Cape Town or he's up in the UK, you guys have got or you're in Cape Town.
Well, I've spent time in Cape Town. I have family there, and I looked at two venues. One in particular to do a tour event near the waterfront, sort of shopping area, and I'd love to have an event there. We got very close some years ago. We just couldn't. There wasn't a fleet of boats available, but it was pretty windy, and it would have been very exciting. So
it is
never say never.
Windy.
Would love to do something down there.
Well, you can then go east a little bit and go to Stellenbosch for some wine while you're down there.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, here's your hashtag. I thought this was new. I saw it on your Facebook page, but you say this is actually where champions are made. Hashtag where champions are made is an old claim.
Yeah, we've been using that for years, and we just updated the. I think that's our Facebook cover picture, which was updated today. You can see Johnny Bernson actually in the orange, not the yellow, the orange Pele piece. They really stand out, and I think we put the hashtag up because we've used it quite a lot, and it really, you know, it does what it says on the tin. You know, this is what I've always thought that, you know, and still believes that the tour does. You know, we feel we make champions. Look at where a lot of the tour sailors and champions have gone on to. So, you know, we like to make champions on the tour. So we've used this for a while.
Sir, anything else before we move ahead here?
Well, that's pretty much a summary of what we've been up to this year. It's been, you know, challenging and a little disappointing just with all the restrictions. It's no one's fault. Our focus right now is, you know, seeing off this year as best as we can, having a great Congressional Cup and hopefully finals in China. More on that later. And then, you know, we've got a half a focus now on building what I hope will be a bigger and stronger tour in 2022 with 2 or 3 new events, which I won't talk about now because they're not signed off. One of them is we have a new Tier 2 event in Italy, which is exciting, and hopefully we'll have 2 new championship events for next year. And we've also, to answer Andrew Bindal's question earlier, you know, we're looking at the makeup of the tour and the teams and how we can get more female, not just sailors on the tour, whether it's skippers or crew. Remember, the tour's an open championship, so there's never been anything to stop any female skipper or crew coming onto the tour, as we have had. Pauline Courtois out of France will be at the FICA Cup and was in Bermuda. Anna Osling from Sweden. We're starting to see more mixed teams. Should we Should the tour start to look at mandating mixed teams, as we've seen in some of the other events like, say, LGP and the America's Cup? That's under discussion. And so I'd like to think we'll have some, good moves for next year. But it's sort of in discussion at the moment. Would welcome any feedback and comments, as always.
Well, speaking of which, let's move forward to the America's Cup. You can stay for a bit. It's, 2,200 in London.
Happy to for a bit. Sure.
Justin Palm was a good Michigan boy living in SoCal and spends a lot of time at Long Beach Yacht Club. Just to clarify, Cat 37s are by far the preferred boat for Con Cup. Solings were only considered last year in the event of an extreme COVID lockdown as a last resort. Note considered.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's right. Julia?
But there was a big long thing from Marcus Weinstein saying that the Solings have all been rebuilt and in perfect shape.
Yeah, I know Dennis Choate has rebuilt some or all of them, and Scotty Dixon has done a terrific job with that Soling program. Has brought one design there. A lot of those Solings date back to the '84 Olympics.
Wow.
They go back that far. So, but they've been rebuilt, and they're good boats, and they have club racing on, tell me what, Sangmeister will know, or Justin Palm will know, like on Wednesday nights. I'm sorry, some of you are still having problems. Has the feed cleaned up at all? Again, I'm seeing nothing but, and I went in and checked the stream stats here and saw absolutely no problem. So it must be a Facebook problem somewhere. I apologize for that. Yeah, Wednesday nights, Kevin Brown is saying at Long Beach Yacht Club. So let's, Wednesday night Solings, Justin Palm was saying. Good. Let's press on here now to the America's Cup, because there's been some interesting, John Sangmeister saying no, meaning I think the stream is not cleaned up. I don't know what the problem is. We've seen Julia and I watch for stream integrity.
And off air and
but you haven't seen any interruption. No. I haven't either, and I know and Clark Chapin is saying he has no problems. Denise Peterson is saying, no, FB still dropping out. Stream is choppy, Kevin Brown. So a lot of you are still having problems. I can only assume that it's a Facebook problem. I apologize. We've all talked about and around this statement yesterday by Grant Dahl, actually dated today, but it came out yesterday. So today, 17 August, being 5 months since we won the 36th America's Cup and just 1 month from the venue announcement coming up, they promise it by the 17th of September. I think it's a good time for an update. I've heard it said that, quote, Emirates Team New Zealand would be better losing the 37th America's Cup in New Zealand than winning it offshore, unquote. Of course, these are comments that come from outside the team, and one expects from people with some sort of vested interest. I still find it astonishing that anyone would expect such a team as ours to set themselves up to lose, and I totally agree with him. You will have read several weeks ago of an offer by a private investor. This was widely trumpeted around New Zealand media, but not much outside New Zealand. I didn't even run it on the show. By a private investor to financially help the team. To date, with time ticking, I've only had one conversation with him and no proposal. All that we are in possession of is an elaborate flowchart showing a complex but typical investment banking structured deal through which tax can be minimized as the Crown and private investors' money flows through to a company owned and controlled by him. This structure is also based on the questionable premise that the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron status as a not-for-profit organization would also be utilized. Emirates Team New Zealand America's Cup event will have no part in any such tax structures, and we are also extremely concerned that yada, yada, yada. In the only conversation or communication I have had with he goes on to talk. That's just, it was BS. I heard about it. I don't even think I talked to Hamish or to Richard Gladwell about it. It just seemed like BS from the get-go. We need to remain hopeful that there's still a chance, albeit small, Dalton says, that a successful defense is held in New Zealand. As part of continuing negotiations, we have provided a draft host venue agreement to the Crown several weeks ago and are awaiting feedback. That was, okay, so that's interesting. They haven't given up. Finding the money for the event is crucial, but the contractual aspects of accepting and advancing that money is of equal importance. In the meantime, we've been busy analyzing the pros and cons of the other shortlisted countries. We've received a significant number of expressions of interest, and that has now been narrowed to 3, which we have been telling you on this show now for weeks. The expanded opportunities that appear to present themselves that's a sentence. The expanded opportunities that appear to present themselves will enable Emirates Team New Zealand to retain all key personnel and mount a winnable defense, as well as enhance the profile of the most successful America's Cup team in history. The goal is firmly to three-peat rather. It has never been done before. Well, you can argue about that, Dennis, if you're talking about the Yacht Club or if you're talking about the team, and I suppose that is accurate with respect to the team. There's some more here. Meanwhile, the protocol drafting continues at pace. Along with the Challenger of Record, we can promise an innovative protocol. Now, this is interesting, and Magnus Wheatley had a lot to say about this in his article, which I'm going to quote from also, that came out today on the Rule 69 blog. We can promise an innovative protocol which addresses diversity in the sport. So one assumes that means women on the yachts, on the cruise, sustainability, which sounds like cost cutting, youth, as well as cost control to help enhance the entry numbers, but that's for another day. From a team's perspective, we completed a very extensive and detailed review of the last campaign. In fact, the way to think about it is that the review was even more thorough than after we lost in SF. You may ask why you won, meaning why have such a thorough review? And actually, that's the answer, because we won. To repeat the campaign the same way as asking to be beaten, teams will not only catch up, but in fact pass us. Amongst many recommendations, which included continuing to boldly push the boundaries in design and innovation and performance, also identified was a need to enhance our match racing experience. And over the next 3 years, expect to see us more active in that space, which you heard James mention a few minutes ago. So watch this space. Not long now, and the venue will be announced. That's in a month's time. Soon after that, the protocol allowing teams to plan their strategies to try and win from us the oldest trophy in international sport. Just in closing, good on American Magic to pick themselves up, and today announce a design coordinator, thus starting their journey towards their challenge for the 37th Cup. So, oh my God, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has tested positive for COVID.
Oh my.
That's interesting. So, do you have any comments on that, James?
Well, it's encouraging to see that they want to enhance their match racing. It's interesting. I mean, they won the cup, and Pete Burling is not we've never really seen him on the tour before. So, it'd be great to see the team as we used to have when there was perhaps a closer connection between the tour and the cup. We had the Team New Zealand. When Terry Hutchinson was sailing with the team, when Ben Ainsley was sailing with the team, all competing at tour events. So I'd love to see them back on the tour, selfishly. I think the bigger discussion with the America's Cup, I mean, it's just it's a lot of money, isn't it? And I don't know, you kind of wonder how much is it going to take from the New Zealand government? It's like it's everything's dependent just on the government. Are there other stakeholders, partners? They're not talked about. It's sort of all or bust just on the government. It sort of seems a little one-sided to me. But
I think we learned a lot, though, and as I think Gordon Smith said, we also maybe out of that have a date, because Grant Dalton talked about 3 years' time on the match racing tour. Coincidentally, James, as you probably know, by the way, if you're just joining us live via Skype from London, is James Pleasance, who's the executive director, esteemed executive director, longtime friend of the World Match Racing Tour. And James, as you know, in the London Times on Sunday, several of our folks sent me the article. Sir Ben Ainsley was talking about the Olympics and the great job that the RYA and the British Olympic program did. But the upshot of all that was that Ben also made some offhand remarks about the next America's Cup. And he said he thought the next Cup was going to be in 2024. And he also said, that's 3 years' time, just as you heard Mr. Dalton say in that statement. And he also said that it would be a multi-challenger event, not a one-on-one, which that also seemed to imply in that statement by Mr. Dalton. Speaking of which, and he also mentioned, Terry Hutchinson's back in action as American Magic, albeit not apparently with New York Yacht Club. This was the statement issued yesterday by American Magic on their website. No mention of New York Yacht Club, as I said. Design work resumes for American Magic. Scott Ferguson, USA named design coordinator. American Magic, the U.S. challenger for the 36th Cup, is moving ahead with performance development work and prep for a challenge for the 37th edition of the oldest event in international sport. It's not the oldest event, it's the oldest trophy. To lead the design effort for the next campaign, the team assigned the two-time America's Cup winner Scott Ferguson as design coordinator. Scott was, of course, with us in New York Yacht Club, Golden Gate Yacht Club's Oracle Team USA when we won in 2010 and in 13. Statement goes on to say, we intend to compete at the 37th America's Cup and to leverage all that we learned and gained from our campaign for Auckland 2021 as we move forward. Said, another clue, Hap Fouth, American Magic team principal and three-time Maxi 72 world champion. Quote, I'm excited to see our team evolve and grow over the coming months, and Scott coming on board is a key part of that. So Hap Fouth, obvious, and Terry told us as much when we interviewed him 3 weeks ago now. Hap Fouth is still involved with American Magic. Last paragraph, while American Magic is not involved in planning the next edition of the Cup, on the event side, the U.S. team has been focused on internal preps. The team stands ready to adapt to the AC-37 venue announcement, updated AC-75 class rule, and AC-37 protocol after publication. And you wonder if Terry's involved in this. Well, yes, because now there's a quote from Terry, quote, based on our regular dialogue with the defender, yada, yada. And there's not really much news in this, but he talks about, but Terry's quoted, obviously, so he's involved in this, Hap Fouth and Terry. And then he talks about Scott Ferguson. The previous America's Cup work includes both design and management roles with LRPP, when it was Luna Rosa, then with us with Oracle Team USA, and American Magic as a consultant through this latest process. So Scott's back in the chair. He's back in the saddle again, Julia. As we sang at the top of the show, Scott Ferguson. Scott's a dear friend. I met him when he was a senior in high school. I wandered into the St. George's Arena, Newport, Rhode Island, where I'd gone over to talk to the coach about becoming to referee some of their scrimmages, because I was refereeing college hockey to get into shape. And Scott's late great father, George Ferguson, said, hey, he came up, tapped me on the shoulder. He's a great big guy. He's a basketball player at Michigan State. George Ferguson, Fergie. And he said, hey, I hear you went to the University of Michigan. My kid, Scott, wants to go there. Can you help get him in?
Sure.
Well, I made a couple calls. Scott, who was a hell of a good hockey player as well as a great sailor, went there, got in, made the hockey team as a walk-on. Michigan's a big-time hockey school. Walked on, made the team, and then after a few weeks, there was some hazing incidents and some other stupidity, and Scott decided to focus on college sailing and his engineering career at the University of Michigan, which has one of the few naval architecture programs in the country. And Scott went on to be an all-American college sailor, and he went on to get great grades and an engineering degree, and he's been one of the top naval architects now, including in the Cup. So Scott Ferguson, better known as Ferg, is the new American Magic design coordinator. And as I said, and as that release said, he was with Oracle Team USA in 2010 and in 2013. That shot must be from 2010 because it's got the wood base. I just realized. I was trying to figure out this morning.
Yeah.
So I think that's from 2010. We put the carbon base on after 2010. Carbon base, which remains. Now, Magnus had a few things to say. Magnus Wheatley, in his Rule 69 blog today, which I thought were interesting, just 2 paragraphs. What really interested me in the latest Grant Dalton comments, dressed up as broadsides, was the line, quote, we can promise an innovative protocol which addresses diversity in the sport, sustainability, youth, as well as cost control to help enhance entry numbers, unquote. Let's break that down and mix in the Terry Hutchinson comments to me in that interview a few weeks ago here on the show on design. Throw this all together in the mixing bowl, and pretty fancy cake is emerging, he says. Okay, let's kick off with the words which addresses diversity in sport. Anything less than female athletes on the boats is a failure. And I'm sure Andrew Pindar will agree with that.
Right.
And many others of you. An abject failure. And I don't think the sporting world will come anywhere close to recognizing the Cup as an apex competition if they don't mandate a crew quota. It will be canceled, meaning the event will be canceled in the public conscience. Canceled, stone dead. Don't even try and fudge this one. James, your comment. You referred to this earlier. I put this in for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I like Magnus's lines. I think interesting comments, and going back to the female participation again. I think that's a really interesting one. I'd certainly like to see that at the America's Cup as well. I think that would be a bold move, but we're seeing it in other events. So it's something I'd like to see for sure.
Well, and as Bobby Steele is mentioning here, something, where's Bobby Steele's comment? The Junior Match Racing Worlds. And I agree with what Bob Steele is just saying. The Junior Match Racing Worlds last week down at Balboa Yacht Club, unlike the Gov Cup, the Gov Cup had the option to sail 3 up or 4. There was still a weight limit, but you could sail 3 or 4. The Worlds, the Youth Worlds, the World Sailing requirement is that they sail with 4. The crew weight limit was a touch higher, and one of the 4 had to be either a male or a female. In other words, you couldn't sail with an all-female crew either. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I liked it. I liked the Worlds. I liked the fact there was a woman on each of the teams, and I know some of you think that, Julie, I know, I'm not sure how you feel about it. We've talked on and off with various about mandating that at least one of the spots be a woman or one of the spots be a man. What, Julia, you go first.
I dislike it, but I know it's necessary.
Why do you dislike it?
Oh, because I think everybody ought to be competing on the same.
Yeah, but you've always been a woman in a man's world. You were the first woman to chair the House Committee at St. Francis. You were the first woman on the board of that headhunting firm you served on. Yeah,
I've always been, but I'm older, and it was necessary then too. But the hand up seems to be necessary right now. But what was noticeable is that every single captain of those boats was very complimentary of the role that the woman played on those boats.
You mean down at the Worlds?
At the Worlds,
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so let's go over now and put James' feet to the fire.
Yeah, I think there's a lot for it, Tom. I mean, with the tour, you remember that our business model, we don't own and run all the events on the tour. So, if we were going to push forward with that, which I'm not against the idea of, we've got to do it for the right reasons, and not a box ticking exercise. It's got to be done for the good of the sport, the tour, the discipline, and also get everyone on board with it. And in our case, 17 events. It's a discussion that we've had and we're having. We're seeing more mixed crews at events. Just if you look at the Bermuda Gold Cup last year, we started to see mixed crews and female skippers. It's not just about having a female sailor as part of the crew. Let's encourage female skippers as well. Previously, when we had the M32 catamarans on the tour, there was a physical. They were very physical boats, and it was harder for the females to put competitive teams together. But we don't have at the moment any of those high performance catamarans on the tour. We're back into the monohulls, which can be equally sailed by male and female skippers and crew. So it's very much on our radar, and it's just, at what point do we look at mandating decisions, but at the same time we're trying to support and grow female participation in all positions on the boat as well, because it's not just about.
Come on, to be fair, it sounds like you and Julia are in the same. We don't really want to mandate it. I'm not being critical. I'm just. You don't want to mandate it. It sounds like. I'm
not saying I'm against mandating it. I think it's got to be done at the right time, and not just as a box ticking exercise. Is it right for is it right for this? Well, the sport is a bit broad. Is it right for the tour? Is it right for the championship? And it may well be. And it's not. And I'm very keen to stress it's not just my decision. We have a tour advisory board, which includes representatives of World Sailing. We have a lot of close friends on the tour. I seek and discuss feedback with everyone, and I encourage it as well. I think we will see naturally more female participation, but it's also, having the slots is one thing. It's encouraging more females to get involved in the sport generally, and also creating the opportunities for them to do that.
It sounds like Julia's got a view here.
Yeah, this is from Bill Wingrove in Tampa Bay. And we had Women's Yacht Racing Association on Tampa Bay back in the 80s and 90s. Women's participation grew organically to the point where there are very few boats that do not have women on board. It grew, and I lost my place. It faded away. Forcing boats to have crew one way or the other is not going to improve the event one way or the other. And if it is canceled over that, so be it. The Cup is going to be the way of NASCAR with these every event changes, which is not doing anything to improve and grow the sport.
Well, it sounds to me, ladies and gentlemen, like the America's Cup is about to mandate women, at least one woman on the crew. And I also think that what I said here, James, a couple of weeks ago, that, and reading between the tea leaves, and Magnus, I know Magnus Wheatley agrees with me, that it sounds like they're going to allow more stored energy, and they're going to get rid of the gerbils on the flywheel, on the,
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that in the shower as I'm getting ready for this show, and I don't like more and more stored energy. I like the idea of requiring a one woman and one man on each of the boats. I get it. And as several people have said, for marketing reasons and for sponsorship reasons, and because it's 2021, Gordon Smith is saying, I can see no reason not to mandate mixed crews. I don't like stored energy. Of all the stuff that we're doing that bugs me, it's the stored energy stuff, and not manual power and not real sailing, because we're gradually just going to turn it into the push button sailing for one or two people. And that bothers me the most, but that's for another day. Apropos that interview with Terry, it's up. I did put it up on YouTube on the Sailing Illustrated TV channel at the request of Magnus and others. Richard Gladwell's writing, I think, a piece about it, and I do commend it to you, and go have a look. And let's see what else we've got to say. We're about an hour and 20 in. I'm sorry about what other problems you're having. Still seeing that some of you are. James Frederick Bland, stand up women on their merits, not quotas. Yeah, okay. Andrew Pindar, having women sailors turn up for trials isn't leading on diversity. Stingray. The Volvo Now Ocean Race has been leading the charge, but still there's a long way to go, as evidenced by some of the comments in this thread. Wow. Denise Peterson, I'm not a man. None of us, I'm sure, Denise, none of us is a fan of mandates, least of all Julia and myself, or I'm sure, James, you and I aren't fans of it, but sometimes you have to, like Sail GP has done, like the Ocean Race has done. Yeah. Okay. What else, Sir James? Anything else before we let you go and I move on to the one or two other topics we've got for today's show?
No, I won't keep you any longer. Thank you for the time. Good to fly the flag, and thanks for the comments and support. And as I say, most people know where to find me, and I very much really do welcome any feedback, criticism, even from everyone. This is not my show. It's we're leading it as best as we can, but do feel free to come in with any feedback, comment. Welcome it from anyone. There's lots of experts and knowledgeable people out there in the industry. Always happy to talk to them.
Well, that's terrific, and I think that's true of everybody on this show. We have open-minded people, and we love to hear everybody's thoughts, and we really appreciate your coming on today to share yours with us.
And if your kind government or customs send me my letter to let me in the country, I will be at the Congressional Cup. If anyone happens to be hanging out at the Long Beach Yacht Club, come come on down.
Well, maybe I'll run down for that. It's an easy flight, hour flight down there. I will tell you that Andy Rose and Christine Gribben, the Gov Cup people, managed somehow with the help of U.S. Sailing. U.S. Sailing really came through in spades to help get whatever letter was necessary. So,
yeah, I can say something on that actually. It's quite useful to know if anyone is, particularly sailors and well, I hope it extends to organisers. Otherwise, I might not be going. Want to, are looking to get over to the US, and I heard that well over 300 sailors have been successful with it's an online form that US Sailing have put together. So rather than, in the case of the UK, us having to go to the US Embassy here in London and plead our cause and explain what the Congressional Cup is, US Sailing have a direct relationship with whatever you've cooked at the Homeland or Customs, US Customs, and you simply fill out a very simple form, send it to US Sailing. They, I think, on a weekly or even daily basis, send this list to US Customs, which then send you a confirmation letter, which is equivalent of an NIE, a national interest exemption letter. Essentially, once you have that confirmation, when you arrive in the US, you should be allowed in the country, and it has been a very smooth process so far. That said, I haven't got the confirmation letter yet, but hundreds of others have, which is why we saw the Swedish, French, Italian teams at the Worlds. So there is a very good process, and congrats to US Sailing or whoever put that in place.
Yeah, apparently US Sailing did. Thanks for that, James. Take good care. Have a nice evening. Thanks for staying late with us. We'll talk soon.
Chat soon. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Okay. Ciao. Ciao, ciao. Bye. Well, Julia, I hope what's going on in Afghanistan doesn't, and our southern border, which is a huge mess, and this whole I almost thought about coming on here today and apologizing to all of our friends around the world for the abject lack of leadership by the U.S. government in this whole pullout. It's just, but I don't want to get, we all want to get away from that. That's how we come on here and talk about what I call the silly sailboat show. And by the way, I will, because a lot of you are having problems, apparently Facebook servers are not correct. I will, as always, put this up. You'll probably be able to view it on Facebook afterwards, and I'll put it up on YouTube, the recording, because we always make a recording of it as well. Maybe they can airlift the sailors from the top of the U.S. Embassy in London. I'm not sure that's a very good joke, Stingray. But yeah, it's a joke. I get it. And it's, I don't know, it's a strange time, COVID and all. Okay, shall we proceed? I just want to give another shout out to the Royal Yacht Squadron, who are the challenger record for the next Cup, which sounds like, with each passing day, sounds like it's going to happen in 2024 and open to multiple challengers. Magnus Wheatley is pretty convinced it's not happening in the Solent. There are a lot of Irish friends saying it is going to happen in Cork. I have friends in Valencia who say it is going to happen in Valencia. I still think it's going to be in the, I don't think they know yet where it's going to be, because they got bids and competing bids, and it's still ratcheting up. So that's why nobody really knows. They probably won't know, as Grant Dalton has said, until a day or so before the final deal, maybe a few days, as people keep coming in and say, well, yeah, but we can do this. We can sweeten the offer this way. I doubt very much it's going to be in Abu Dhabi. And if it is, a pox on everybody involved in that, because trying to run this event now in the Middle East, the best of times, was going to be a madness, and now with what's going on, I think it's going to be. I still think it's going to be the Solent, but we shall see. And that's not a one here's, because I don't know. But the Fastnet race, which started a week ago Sunday, was a terrific success. They started in a lot of breeze. Roll the recap tape.
The 49th edition of the Rolex Fastnet race has had it all. The spectacle of the 300-boat start, the excitement of a gusting 35-knot wind, the beauty of the Fastnet Rock, and above all, the memorable performances from the race-winning yachts. Amongst them, the electrifying speed of French trimaran Maxi Ehman de Rothschild, rewarded with multi-hull line honours victory. The all-new Super Maxi Scorpius, claiming monohull line honours glory in their very first offshore race. and the stunning race sailed by Tom Neen and crew on board the British yacht Sunrise, winning the race overall on corrected time and presented with the most prized of trophies, the Rolex Challenge Cup and Rolex watch.
I've watched Rolex Fastnet race finishes in Plymouth since I was a teenager, and to even have completed one I think is an amazing achievement, but to win one is a dream come true. So it was quite an exhausting start, but when you're tacking upwind in 30 plus knots with 300 plus boats, it was difficult because it was windy and there was huge waves. There's an awful lot to think about and there's a lot of danger. So we had no real issues along the south coast and got to the rock in a great position. So the Fastnet Rock, it's a legendary place, and rounding it for the first time or the 10th time still has this very special feeling. Crossing the line is a wonderful moment, especially when you've had a great race and everything's kind of gone your way. I think you need a lot of luck to win these races, and some of that luck is earned by good decisions and some of that luck is just luck. It's something that I never thought would happen, and here I am.
I want to meet that guy and have a beer with him, or a glass of wine, or maybe a tequila soda. Doesn't he look like a lot of fun?
Yeah, has a great voice.
And he has a nice voice, and he's been watching it since he was a teenager. He must be from Plymouth. So bravo Zulu to them and to everybody involved, the RORC, to all the winners, and just another terrific event, terrific race. Our sport is so lucky. I was down at Balboa Yacht Club, which has a beautiful vista over Newport Harbor, and you got Newport Harbor Yacht Club, Bahia Caribbean, those other clubs, and the junior sailing, and the Stars were out in the Baxter Bowl or something. They were sailing out there in the Pacific Ocean up just north of us. And then I fly back up here, go over to the St. Francis, go straight there after and have lunch looking up there. It wasn't a great day, but it's still a nice day looking out on the bridge in Alcatraz, and there's sailing going on. You got the kites, and we're so lucky. In these clubs, as Paul Henderson always says, these clubs, we're so lucky. The facilities they have, it's on the grandest real estate, many of it. You look at Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron.
Yeah.
Look at CYCA and Rushcutters Bay. Look at all these clubs that we have. New York Yacht Club at Harvard Court. And even little clubs on our lake where Clark Chapin, it was past Commodore, and I grew up. Our little club is just commands a nice part of the southern part of this little tiny pond, and we're lucky. We are just so lucky in our sport, and we should always remember that, I think. This day in history, I promised you it had some relation to Mellow Yellow. See who gets this first. On this day in history of the 17th of August I had this 1968 from memory, and then I had to go back and double check it this morning. I don't think it was 68. I think it was 69. Do you know what happened on this date in history? Here's your first clue. Julia's peering into her monitor.
I can't read it.
You can't read it. Well, that won't help. I'll put it back so you get it full screen. Yasgur Farms. Stingray will get this. David James has it. David James, right off the bat, has it. The last day of Woodstock in 1969. Well done, David James.
Indeed.
He didn't even need the rest of the clues. At the Yasgur Farms, the big mud fest that it was. Remember that logo?
No.
I have that on the album and the eight tracks. I'm dating myself now. I had 8 tracks of all the music at that place. And there is the actual, they sold a bunch of tickets. Just, you couldn't get on the internet and sign up in those days. You had to send your little check, cut the little coupon out of the paper or out of where it was and send your check in. But what a mess. It turned out to be soaked by rain and wallowing in the muddy mess of Yasgur's Farms fields. Young fans best described as
hippies.
Hippies euphorically took in the performance of acts like Janis Joplin, Arlo Guthrie, Joe Cocker, Joan Baez, Creedence, Clearwater Revival, just got back from Illinois, the Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, Sly and the Family Stone, and Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young when they were still together. The Who performed in the early morning hours of August 17th with Roger Daltrey belting out See Me, Feel Me from the now classic Tommy rock opera Tommy. Just as the sun began to rise. The most memorable moment of the concert for many fans was the closing performance by Jimi Hendrix, who gave a rambling, rocking solo guitar performance of the Star-Spangled Banner. And there he was, played the guitar left-handed. I mean, it was just astonishing how well he played the guitar when a guy can play the Star-Spangled Banner with his teeth. Did you know that?
No.
He did. He held his guitar up like this and played it with his tongue. And yes, he played. The guy was. That seems to be a lesson from a collection. When you can play with his teeth, you don't haggle over his booking fee. That seems to be the lesson from a collection of recently unearthed documents that purports, Stingray, you'll love this, purports to show how much the promoters of Woodstock shelled out for each of the legendary festival's top performers. A list that tops out at 18 grand for Jimi Hendrix. It reportedly was his take-home fee. Adjusted for inflation, that works out to more than 100 grand today. Okay, it doesn't sound like a lot by some rock festival standards. And while it may not be surprising that Hendrix would be so handsomely compensated, the list does contain a few entries that may catch some rock fans off guard, including $750 paid to Santana. Well, just $50 more than the guys in Sha-Na-Na. Also, we're all enjoying these. This, most of you are too young to remember this, let alone these bands. Also on the cheaper end of the spectrum, Joe Cocker, the Grateful Dead, and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. On this day in history, 1969, Jimi Hendrix closes Woodstock. Julia,
I was too busy at the time.
Too busy?
Yes, I was.
Oh, you were what? Let's see, I would have been 69. I would have been.
I was
not yet 16. I was 15 years old. So you must have been what, 25 or so.
30.
30.
I was very much involved with the startup of CalArts, and we didn't have a minute to deal with all that.
Well, I'm glad I didn't go to Woodstock. I'm glad. I think I am. I'm sure I did. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, if there ever was some. The Olympics, we still have our Olympic segment. I've got a couple videos. I want you to, they're minute-long videos that World Sailing issued, and we've been saying nice things, haven't we, about these World Sailing videos?
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say anything. You be the judge. Roll tape. My point is, fewest maneuvers completed, most maneuvers. I mean, they took all this off tracking, and somebody must have had a computer. I'm sorry, what do you think? Hey, Mitch Ross, back on Woodstock, while you're putting your comments, he says, if you remember Woodstock, you weren't there.
That's true.
Apparently Hendrix liked the Isle of Wight, somebody was saying on here. Look, I'm not going to play the next one. They did, and this was in honor of, I thought I'd play this in honor of John Emmett.
Yeah.
Because they did the same thing for each of the classes. This stat attack, they call it. I think they wasted a lot of time on these. I don't know why they did it. They must have thought it was cheap and easy and somehow useful. But I must say, I'm sorry, I thought these were crutonic and a waste of space. Overall, average race speed in the whole fleet at 5.3, excuse me. See? Okay, I'm not going to play the rest of it because I think it's so crutonic. I am going to play this because when I got this morning, I nearly fell off my chair. What the hell is John Emmett going to be talking about in this video? Have a look.
Yeah.
Greetings from sunny Weymouth. This is not my normal get-up for a sailing regatta.
He looks great. He shaved too.
Yeah.
People are going to say I'm biased, but I think this has been a very special week. It's the Ilka class 50th anniversary, which has been sailed at one of my favourite venues, Weymouth. And I think that the numbers say it all. We had 271 boats. That's from people straight out of Optimist and Toppers up to 60, 70-year-old people, all racing across the Ilka 4, 6 and 7 range. And it's just been an amazing event. And I say, you know, people were saying biased that Weymouth is my hometown, but the Academy put on an amazing event, and it almost feels like restrictions from COVID never happened. And it's so nice to have everybody all back together in a very safe way. So you may have guessed from my get up, I'm getting ready for the 50th anniversary dinner, the 50th anniversary of this fantastic class. We actually had a huge procession, all 271 of us going out to the racecourse on the first day, led by a 50-year-old laser, and it was a genuine 50-year-old laser. Actually, the clue of the sail tore out, and we had to patch it up to make it all the way out to the bay, but we made it, and it's been absolutely cracking conditions. And I see this really as a class which is inclusive, and so many great people have been through the class. Indeed, our speaker will be Ian Percy, who's a laser champion, Fin champion, a star champion, America's Cup campaign, and the list goes on and on. So he's going to be the guest speaker, so I better hurry up and see if my jacket soon still fits, because it's going to be a wonderful evening, and they're going to celebrate all the past national champions and all the people who've been through the class, and it really is going to be a very special night. And a lot of the proceeds will go to the Andrew Simpson charity in memory of another fantastic laser, fin and star sailor, Bart Simpson. That's Andrew Simpson. So yeah, I need to get a wriggle on. My thoughts about the Olympics is actually as soon as one Olympics finishes, the next one starts. So that the post-Olympics is actually just the pre-Olympics for that cycle. And the important thing now is for everybody to realise the mistakes they've made, because it's only through acknowledging these mistakes that you can rectify them and make yourself or your team even better for the future. And that's such an important thing, just to realise what you've done wrong and what you can do better. And each and every day is an opportunity to improve that. A lot of things have already changed since 2021, and 2024 is going to be an amazing event. But now I really need to go and get a wriggle on.
He keeps saying that. John, go. That was terrific. And,
Yes.
and Gordon Smith is saying how much he appreciates having John's vlogs, and we all do. And vlogs, those of you who do a video vlog is now the term of art.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see John Julia in his complete getup.
Oh, yes.
I hope he'll take a picture. Now, you realize he's dressing himself. His wife's not around.
Oh,
Lily
yeah.
Zhu is in...
She's in China,
or maybe still in Tokyo doing the the Paralympic Games. I'm not sure which.
I bet. Oh, she probably is.
I think doing broadcasting for Paralympic Games.
Yeah.
And then she was going to China to help do something broadcast-wise. The very talented lady that she is, to say nothing of the gold medalist 2012, was it, in Weymouth?
Yeah.
And now married to John, who was then her coach. John, of course, a Masters world champion. Many of you don't maybe realize Masters, one of the levels, Masters world champion in the laser class, the Ilka 7. And as Peter Stevenson is saying, Pedro Foiling Sailor is saying, yeah, where's the video of this event? 200, what do you say, 17 boats or 70? 200, a lot of boats. And this has been done not just in Weymouth, but they had a celebration that Peter Stevenson, you may recall, was involved in down in Sydney, and they had a big regatta, a couple weeks ago, and sent us a video, and Peter sent us a picture or two. Must have been more than 2 weeks, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago. Can John Emmett send a live feed from dinner after a glass of Prosecco? Well, it's what time is it? Maybe it is tonight. You know what? Maybe this was filmed. I guess it was perhaps, because he sent it to me. He said, I'm going to be a little late. And he sent it to me about an hour and a half before we went to air, and I get it and put it into the show. So maybe he is there now. I don't see him on here, so that's good. We need a picture, John, of the whole regalia.
Yeah. Yes.
A live feed from dinner after a glass of Prosecco. Remember that night he'd had a few glasses?
Yeah, it was fine.
And now they're back talking. See this, Julie? They're back talking about Hendrix. David James says, yes, that Jimi Hendrix's last concert was on the Isle of Wight in 1970.
But Ted Ryman said,
yeah,
at Love and Peace Festival in Femen, Germany on September 6, 1970.
That was his last one?
That's what Ted Ryman says.
We'll let Ted and David James fight that one out. Oh, David James says, I stand corrected.
Aha.
Yeah, why can all these events happen around the world with hundreds of boats and participants, and NZ has to shut down over one case? Well, Hamish Ross says it's now more than one case, but nonetheless, you know what? What I like is that different. I'm an anti-centrist. As Julie's rolling her head.
Yes.
I am against central control. I lived in Europe and watched what the EU did. Look, we're gonna leave him. We can take John off because I like that picture of him.
Yeah.
We'll save him. I don't like central control. I don't like Washington D.C. trying to tell the states what to do. I don't like Sacramento trying to tell the capital of our state trying to tell the cities what to do. De Tocqueville here in the 1830s. That figured out as one of the great strengths of the U.S. is that we are decentralized. One of the great strengths of our sport is the clubs, the classes, and the regatta weeks, as Paul Henderson keeps saying, and I couldn't agree more. When we let the clubs decide what to do, the classes what to do, and then we follow their lead, and the governing bodies follow their lead, we're way ahead of the power curve. And that's what they do in Great Britain, and that's why they win medals. That's what they do in New Zealand. That's what they do in Australia and in several others of your countries. They don't have some ivory tower, excuse me, get my poor old back here adjusted, and ivory tower dictation from top down like they do in Brussels, like they do in Washington, D.C. It is croutonic, to say the least. Speaking of croutonic, we're now in our final Whiskey Tango Foxtrot segment. I like this guy, too.
I do, too.
I've only got a couple, but speaking of world leaders, do you see what's wrong with this picture? Stingray will know this. This guy, of course, is the PM.
His fingering must be wrong.
Bojo. I can go to my, I haven't used it in a long time. I'll go to my, I think the picture is backwards. Do you see right here his fingering?
Yeah.
You see this device right here?
Yeah.
That's called a capo.
Yeah.
And when you are playing a guitar and you want to change key easily and not have to use your index finger to bar the chords up here higher up the neck, you attach this capo, which in effect shortens the neck, and you play then the strings above the capo. You put the chordings with your fingers above the capo. He obviously is faking this. He doesn't know it, and he's playing below the capo. It's hilarious. This thing was all over the news. There's a better picture in the not the reversed shot that was. Well, Bojo. What's worse than that?
No.
Thanks, Ted Ryman, for that photo he sent this morning. I thought it was hilarious. He knowing that I'm a guitar player. This photo is more hilarious. This is something the White House released yesterday, claiming the president was hard at work on the whole situation in Afghanistan until several eagle-eyed people in the media realized this photo via the Associated Press. I'm not sure it was they who figured it out, but look at the clocks. London and Moscow separated by 3 hours. Well, this time of year, London and Moscow are only separated by 2 hours. And there's just no way those clocks in the Situation Room up at Camp David would be wrong, because London goes on British Standard Time, Moscow does not. So this is a picture taken in March, before London went on British, not Standard Time, British Summertime.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried to fake this from the White House yesterday, and it's just another astonishingly stupid thing that people do, try to get away with it via the Associated Press, as I said. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, indeed. The finish line, our last little segment, this weekend, and I'm not going to say much more about it than this, the Rockwool Denmark Sail Grand Prix is on. Aarhus is hosting the next event of Sail GP Season 2 this weekend, 20th through the 21st in Aarhus, as I think I just said. And here's an email exchange I had. They were all over me like a cheap suit again today. Thanks, Ms. Glickman. and I didn't put, and I'm not going to even mention it. And they want to know, why am I not covering it? You got to cover it. You got to sign on to do this and that. And I said, I'm done covering SailGP because every time I run one of your YouTube videos on TFE Live to promote an upcoming event or recap the one that just took place, I get a content copyright strike. They are aggressively, SailGP are going out after anybody who runs their SailGP little 1-minute videos before or after the fact. I'm not trying to run their race coverage live or anything like that. So I've been a strong supporter of Larry Russell and SailGP, but enough is enough. Obviously, SailGP does not care about our thousands of keen yacht racing viewers here on TFE Live who watch every Tuesday and Friday. So I sadly will not be covering the Danish SailGP or any of the future GPs until they come back and tell me that I can use their videos, which are posted free to air on YouTube that everybody else can watch, without me getting a content copyright strike here on this. Julia.
Okay. I was just looking for that.
And it's Crutonic. So that's why we're not saying anything more about it. This coming Friday, as I mentioned at the top of the show, we'll be having a feature on the Cannabis Cup, which, knock on wood, is happening.
Yes.
Now, the Cannabis Cup is a Great Lakes match racing championship. It's been going on since the turn of the last century, almost. I can't remember the dates. But this year, the Youngstown Yacht Club in Ohio is coming across to Toronto to race. And they're going to race. I don't know if they have to sail their boat across the lake or not, but if they do, this COVID thing may stop that from happening too, because up until now, you haven't been able to pass back and forth between Canada and the U.S. But regardless, on Friday, we'll have Alan McGarry, who's the regatta chair, and actually the co-chair is Jamie Keating, a past Commodore of the Royal Canadian Yacht Club, as our guests. We've had them on the show before. Looking forward to that. Remember, they're running the regatta this year, and they tried to do it last year, but it got COVIDed. Is that a word? COVIDed?
If you
COVIDus interruptus.
Yeah, that was here earlier.
Was it?
Yeah.
They are running them in the new Malgus New York Yacht Club IC37s, and that will be interesting. I think it'll be an interesting event. We'll hear about that on Friday, and then again next Tuesday, a week from today, we'll have Mr. Andrew McIrvin coming on to tell us about. He's going to also tell us about the Fastnet race and give us the update on the Maxi World Championships and the Maxi class, as he is the Secretary General of the International Maxi Association, the IMA. That's next Tuesday. And we got some other interesting shows on tap. Everybody wants to come on the show, and that's great.
That is good.
We'll go through it. Julia, anything else from you?
No. Stingray saying that those copyright strikes are completely automatic. It's nothing personal, but they can fix it.
They can fix it. They can say there's no problem. And then when I've written back, Stingray, and I have said, excuse me, when I challenge it and they don't, their organizing, their group says, no, we will not release the challenge. So I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
So the feed has stabilized finally. Thanks. And nothing has changed here. All the numbers are the same. So they must be having some kind of problems there. Yeah, it's as who's just said it, Canadian border closure ended 9 August. Good. Thank you for that, Clark Chapin. And Tiffany Wood, thank you. David Wood's mother. Congratulations, Tiffany, to David. The feed has stabilized. Yeah, okay. Somebody else had a comment I think I wanted to say here. Julie, anything? Oh, Youngstown. Alan Long is saying Youngstown Yacht Club is in New York. Yes, sorry. Did I say Ohio? It's in New York. They go across Lake Ontario over to the Royal Canadian Yacht Club in Toronto, Ontario. Big anniversary coming up. Yes, Hamish Ross, there is. We'll maybe get Hamish to do a little segment on that. Hamish, do that. Send us a video. Hamish, would you please? You know what that anniversary is, Julia? 1851.
Oh, yes. That's
August 22nd.
That's next Sunday. It's on
1851, and now this is 2021.
It's in my calendar.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Hamish, why don't you do a little John Emmett style vlog? Just give us a little video, record it with your iPhone, and send it up to us, and we'll run it on the show.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great. Okay, that's it. Pete Dorsey, James Frederick Blend happens about the same time we got past match racing. the feed stabilized. Yeah. Thanks, Hamish. That'd be great if you did that. Julia, your witness.
Yes. Oh, please like, follow, and share. Makes such a difference.
Does, and we appreciate it very much. Likewise, comments welcome too, even if in replay. It's great to be back in the saddle again.
Oh, it is. Much nicer.
It is so much easier to do the show here than it is on the road in our little studio. And I'll tell you what, Julia, it's a hell of a lot easier to do it with you here than that.
It's a lot easier for me, too.
I really appreciate all you do for us. And all you all do by watching and promoting and keeping us going. It's fun. It's a lot of work, but we'll keep doing it, at least for some time, some more time. Patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated if you want to support us. We have gotten some big chunks of money in, some little chunks of money. And my landlady also gives us a pretty good deal on the rent and support. She even had the carpets at the Beach Street Yacht Club cleaned this week.
Yes.
What a difference that made.
Yeah, it's huge. I didn't realize it.
Greg Newman's watching. Father Newman, terrific job that you did down there for both the Gov Cup and the Worlds as the bosun.
Yes, absolutely. I was watching that.
And the kids just love him. He's got a team of people who work morning, noon, and night. He's the hardest working guy in the whole event. And Greg Newman keeping those boats in tip-top shape.
And there was lots to do this time.
Well, there was Gov Cup. This time wasn't so much.
Right.
But in the Worlds, because it was a lot lighter. Gov Cup was really windy. It was up in the high teens almost every day and mid to high teens. And this was a stereotypically light regatta. Newport Beach usually kind of 7 to 9 to 10, but those boats are designed for that condition. In fact, I was thinking, Julia, why doesn't the Gov Cup 22, you wanted to have that racing was fantastic, both Gov Cup and the Worlds. I mean, there were races that were finishing and changing. They had lead changes in the last 10 meters of the races, and it was just fantastic racing. They ought to take the Gov Cup 22s with symmetrical sails, not ASIMs, meaning Jennekers. They ought to blow that boat up to a very light 75-footer with spinnakers.
Yeah.
And go on the America's Cup. Now that would be not one design necessarily. Have some, have a box rule that produces boats like that. I think that would be pretty special.
Mm-hmm. Except if you're in San Francisco Bay, it might be a little.
Well, no, you'd have to gear the boats up, and you'd have some variation in the size of the sail plan and in the weight, just like you did in the 12-meter rule, the IACC rule, just like you do in the AC 75.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you on Friday. In the meantime, have a great rest of your week. And, of course, as always, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao. Bye. Ciao for now.